Good morning, kinfolk. It has been a while since I made a waking up well video, and it is definitely in order that I do so. It's your girl, Motown Fox. I've been waking up really well. I've been waking up and having vision. I've been waking up and having perspective. I've been waking up and having compassion. I've been waking up and having potential. And so I've been waking up and waking up well, but I've been waking up well off of just what's in me. Because, like, if you looked at my external, it would be like, what's going on? Crazy stuff going on with my job, crazy stuff going on with my living situation. There's a pandemic. There's so much that's happening, but I'm thankful to have found peace and wellness in the fact that I survive. And I don't just survive, I thrive when I put myself in a position to do what I'm good at. So I feel particularly good this morning because I did something that I typically wouldn't do. I stood up for me. I calculated risk. I calculated the severity of the injury. I calculated my attachment. I calculated pretty much all the situations before I moved. But the point remains that I stood up for me, and I don't be doing it. Sure don't. So last week, I had a conversation during a staff meeting about what's been going on. I work at an organization that serves low-income Black people because I'm passionate about that. That's what hit homes for me, you know. That's who I come from. That's what I am, and I'm very passionate and fierce about justice and equity. So when I joined this organization, I had the expectation that this belief and sentiment was shared amongst all based off of the mission and the values. And now, I'll give it to myself that I'm young and sometimes naive, because I believe that because it was an all-Black organization, that I could take what they said at face value, and that was wrong. It felt good. It was very like, feel good Black times. I don't like my hair up like this. For some reason, it made me look like a baby doll in the way I don't intend to. Ooh, come on here. You know, I can't stand having no tension on my hair anymore. But so I called out some of the issues that I saw that were affecting our work, which was primarily about the fact that we're an organizing organization that is internally disorganized, which ultimately, in my opinion, affects the reach of our work and our sustainability. Like, I think that there's some good things that can happen in the interim while people are on their way, on the journey to being burnt out. But I think that in terms of is the work that we're doing growing and being developed in a capacity that is sustainable for the organization? No. And why is that? Because we're trying to overwork the 6 people that make up this team. You know, I want to try to be as general as possible because I'm trying to make a point about recognizing that it's a word for it that people like to use a certain type of politic. It's not representational politics. it's something similar. It's something similar, but it's not representational politics. But the point is that the idiom that skin folk are not always kinfolk is something that one should keep in mind, but one shouldn't take too literally because there's too many nuances now. So we typically have understood not all skin folk is kinfolk to mean, you black radical are necessarily fighting the same race as being Carson, like an extremely conservative version of an ideology of which you share. Now, what's important to recognize that we live in a neoliberalist/capitalist world that puts people, on a spectrum of what kind of unethical things that you're willing to allow to go on. And the farther you are on the beneficiary aspect of it, the farther you probably are away from some of your revolutionary goals that you had originally hoped to bring forth. But that depends on the person. That's not flat, wholesale. My point is that I'm working in an organization that intends to serve black people and intends to serve black people in the ways that I believe that black people need to be served. However, that it's operating in a certain way because leadership it is replicating, like the I didn't want to say it like this, but I gotta say it like this. The organization is replicating white power structures. And by that I mean we operate in a model that is incredibly hierarchical and arbitrary and not effective for growth, but is doing so on the basis of power, on the desire to be able to exert power without explanation or collaboration. That shit is so American, like the idea that I need to be the person and I don't need anybody to say so and I don't need anybody to explain to me. However, the things that I don't really care about and don't truly that I don't really feel like doing, I am willing to like, throw those crumbs. But it is grown to be so increasingly unworkable. And I'm a person that knows how to work in a lot of different types of environments. Because the thing is, I notice pretty immediately that folks are out here playing white boy games. And I've done that. Like, not the games, but I've had to play those games to go through white institutions to be able to get, even as far as I did through Iowa, but definitely to be able to stay in debate as long as I did. It feels so much like debate because it's like these black people who have similar fundamental ideals as you, who have been in the system. In the system, I want to break it down. It's not just like this general system. There is, I guess, probably a system of anti-blackness that then filters into things that are specific. But when I say the system, I'm speaking about the juvenile justice work that we do. Worked for a state-based organization that was federally funded. And so you're coming from things from the perspective of domination. You're trying to unlearn domination by creating something that is an anti-hierarchical model, but it's still operating through bureaucracy. And you try to convince people that we all have power here, that we are equal stakeholders, and then at a moment notice or when dissent emerges, active repression. And that just don't sit right with me. And so last week, when I brought this up to the team and wanted to bring this, because I like to give people the opportunity to be enlightened, because I know sometimes it just takes somebody to call it out for an intervention that's well needed to be able to emerge. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. After, I went to the staff meeting, I said my piece, and it was funny because one of the individuals above me had kind of was like, okay, Pepsi challenge, bitch. Nah, you basically gotta tell us everything that you think is the problem. And I was just like, honestly, sis, I've been thinking about this for quite some time. So that Pepsi challenge, I'll take you up on it. Because I take notes. I've been documenting that every time that I notice a microaggressions, misuse or abuse of power, you got to document that. You got to date it. You should share that in an email to somebody that you know, or just generally be having constant conversation with people when you start to notice these kind of things arise, because it doesn't matter what kind of institution you in. An institution is an institution, and they're different from collectives. And so if you started to see some fuck shit, you probably should take note of it, because it could be some information that needs to be useful in articulating what's been going on, so they can't gaslight you. So when she put me in that situation, I had been prepared for it. And so I ended up having to talk for somewhere near between an hour and a half, intermingle with objections from a specific individual, as well as just breaks, little breaks and stuff. But it was a significant amount of time where I was put on the spot, and I didn't like that shit, because this is representative of why our reach will always only go so far. They hired me to be the youth person. You feel me? Like, it's only a few of us, and we're a youth-serving organization, and they hired me because I am a young person, and I have the perspective that goes beyond my years. And I know that that's valuable, and they know that that's valuable. That's why they hired my black ass on. But I didn't like what happened at the staff meeting, because in a typical situation, the position that she put me in, another young person might not be able to handle it. I've been hazed in white institutions for a number of years now. So I was able to go through that situation with Eve, but I think that it's unsustainable as a model, because as a youth-serving organization, we need youth to be a part of our collective voice. We need youth to be on staff. We need youth to be on our board. And I believe that is our hope for growth. But all that shit will fail. And it's fascinating, because I look back onto some of the records. I'm a researcher, okay? So when I recognize that something is a problem, I like to do research, because I don't like to talk out the side of my fucking neck. I want to know what's the truth. How do I know every variable that I can know and that I need to know to be able to make the most informed decision? So I went through our records. I checked through former board meeting notes. I went through a litany of Word documents from that are collected in our database. I wanted to know the no, because I felt as if this happened to me, and there were several indications that it had happened before, but I was not 100% sure. If this happened to me, this is likely to have happened again, happened in the past, or was inevitable to happen, because we have never been set up in a capacity to be able to give young people a real voice. And it is fascinating to me that I listened to a past conversation amongst various stakeholders to this organization, and they were talking about, we want to get a young person on board. We really want to do this, yada yada yada. And another person had replied, that's another stakeholder in the organization, was just like, well, I caution us to do that, because there's often a time where organizations will add in a young person, not without the ability to be able to support them to have an active and meaningful role. And that's true. And I'm so glad that they said that, because it is true, not just in the level of putting a young person on board, but even making a young person a staff member. They wasn't ready for a me. They're operating in the way that nonprofits operate, in an exploitative capacity for the communities that they claim to serve. I've seen this shit. I don't know how many times I have to say that I have been able to make it this far, because I've had to play these games, but I played these games with white people at white institutions. And so I'm surprised, though I should not be, that I'm seeing this at what I believe to be a black institution. But it's an institution nonetheless. And the most striking comparison that I have is the National Urban Debate League. when we were in high school, when I was in high school, and my entry to policy debate was through the Detroit Urban Debate League, which was functionally a league that they made for the inner city kids, where it was supposed to give them access to debate, but it was supposed to give them access to debate in a very bastardized form. Okay? Because they didn't think that we had the literal capacity to be able to win at this shit. You know, because you're coming from these schools that are at such a deficit. You're coming from these families that are broken. You're coming from this. They were never ready for young people who were able to who they never believed that most of these young people had the capacity to be more, and they didn't practice, or they didn't operate in a way that was concurrent with educational research or psychology about what it would be, what would it take to be able to make these young people ready to be able to infiltrate this activity. They just started doing shit. They got money from rich philanthropists. It was just like, here, we gonna give them a little bit piece of it. And so somehow, me and little boy from my high school, who was living in the burbs, but I was living in Detroit, actually living in Detroit, we were able to become successful. And they didn't know what to do with us. They didn't want us to be able to participate in the urban debate leagues. They just wanted you to do what we started calling outside tournaments that were not associated with this truncated form of debate. Stuff that was in the suburbs, when you have to go to national organizations, national tournaments. When you go to different cities across the country, you go to Glenbrooks, you go to Berkeley, California, you go to all these little places across the United States to be able, and those are called the outside tournaments. And because we did that, and because we could supersede the level of which they had wanted us, a little box that they had wanted our little black asses to stay in, they didn't want us to play the game no more. Because the vision that nonprofit had of what our capacity was did not match where we were. Our intellectual capacity, everything past that. And it's not to say that we are supernumerary in this equation. It's that we had different resources, and it was by chance, honestly, that we were able to surpass it. But they didn't know what to do with us. And in a similar position, organizations like the one that I'm working for, that is youth serving, that wants to build, that proclaims righteously, claims that we want to help young people, we want to intervene on the school to prison pathway. We say that we want to. We say that we want to empower young people to have a voice, to be able to move in these places that are attempting to serve them. We say that shit. And then actively, I am a foil to that. Because what they wanted from me is exploitation. You want me to be a face. You want me to be able to do a speaking event at the moment's notice, when that's actually not really my responsibility. You want me to do program development and group facilitation for a number of different programs. You want me to do a community, and don't get me wrong, here's the thing. The reason why, when I learned about some of the things that I would be kind of like, here, and we need you to do this, and we need you to do this, and we need you to do this, is because I do care about those things, and they really matter to me. I love working with young people, and as a scholar, I of course want to develop the most rigorous of programs possible. It was at I don't remember what exactly started to do it for me, but something, the gears started churning. When I realized, I sat down one day, and I started to consider, why am I so stressed? Like a couple things were true. I just figure out why I was so stressed. Why am I so poor all the time? And why am I not the best in my job yet? And fundamentally, it's because I know that I am brilliant and I am capable, and I am in a field where I am meant to excel. And so these factors, and I also take care of myself. So the stress piece was very confusing to me. I'm very active about maintaining myself, being a person who's been grieving for the past 7 months the loss of their partner. It has been very important for me to take discipline measures to take care of myself. So when I asked myself why I was stressed, it's because I realized I've been asked to do like 7 jobs for $3. And because I didn't know better, and because I cared about the work, I said I would. However, I recognize that's not sustainable. And that's not self-love. And that's not black love. That is capitalist exploitation. I saw a tweet the other day that was like very true to this particular situation, where it said something to the following of like systems of like it used like a series of emojis like y'all reacting to systems of domination, and it's like angry emojis and like like all the little things, and then it was like right below it was like y'all responding to system of domination with black people in power. Like just like little stuff that's like in celebration of it. And so for me, that had really articulated in my mind how I've been able to be okay with this for so long, is because I was looking at the image and I was seeing skin folk. And because I heard some of the things that they said that they care about, I was like, kinfolk. Our world is too nuanced nowadays for you to be able to say that somebody is kinfolk on the basis of their skin color and how they look. What are you doing? Because it's not the exact same litmus test that we use for allies, where it's just like you can say that shit and you can be at a rally, but what are you doing? But it is a similar one. And it is a similar one for people who are in positions of privilege. People who making 6 figures. People who got their house and have had house for generations. For people who doing okay. Skin folk, or people who have been in academia. Like skin folk who can talk the talk are not automatically kinfolk. That is not the era that we live in. And probably has never been the one that anybody has lived in. But it is especially not now. Because we live in a world where an organization can proudly and boldly proclaim to be pro-black and against the government and their nuanced explanations as to why, and do the same fucked up shit because you're an institution in America. And you were not cautious and rigorous about maintaining an awareness or consciousness around the ways in which anti-blackness can infiltrate your own and each of your own colleagues' mind. So the organization is going down. And it's sad to see. But the point of this is to tell other people to know when to jump ship. Because you can't get lost into the pretty picture of being with the black people. Like I remember when I posted a picture of my team to my Facebook, a friend of mine had commented on that picture and was like, y'all look like y'all same black families. Y'all look like it. Y'all look like it. And to be clear, there's a ton of things that this organization has done to produce a meaningful change in people's life. It has. It has. And so I don't wish to downplay the things that people have contributed, because like I said, I think that their intentions based off of their words are noble, but your reach will always be small, because there's too many unchecked biases and opinions and beliefs that are now harming you from being able to enact your mission. And so I wanted to caution other young people to be aware of the ways in which you get exploited. And this is especially true in this, for young black people who are working with organizations that claim to be progressive. Here's a good short, what I'm about to say is similar to the hair porosity test, where the hair gurus say take a strand of your hair, put it in a glass of water, and if it floats, then you got high porosity, and if it sinks, or if it floats, you have low porosity. If it sinks, you have high porosity. But that test, while it's pretty indicative, is not all inclusive. It doesn't go into the nuances of you have normal or medium, porosity type of shit. Like, it's just for a quick kind of way to see. And so what I am attempting to say to you is similar to that. Hey baby, you okay? Boo boo, come here. Hey, come here. What you going through, boo? The example that I was gonna give for how to determine if you feel like you're being exploited by the organization that you're working for is determining two things. What is the value of the work that you can do? For real. Like, the work that you do for the organization, how is it valued by them? Is it central to the work that they do? Is it peripheral? But determining where your real value is, your precise value to the work that you do. For me, I know it's very high. Why do I know that? A couple reasons. I know my skill set. And my skill set matches the job that they want me to do, which is basically leading youth programming for a youth service organization. So because we're a youth serving organization, leading youth programming would make my value incredibly high. Incredibly high. But your input, if it's not matched up to that or roundabout, you're probably being exploited. And by input can be a number of things, and it's respected to the organization. It's important to remember that input is not just money. If you are getting more out of the organization than just money in a way that makes you feel seen, received, and respected, then it could be that something that maybe perhaps your pay is not commensurate, but you're working for an organization that doesn't have a pay, can't pay you what is commensurate to your full work. But nobody should, if there are people who are considered higher on the hierarchy, who are making a ton more than you, then it's exploitation still. They can claim that they don't have the money, but those people who are doing some of the administrative pieces to be able to allow you to keep doing your work, but your work is what sustains the organization, that's a nonprofit industrial complex. It shouldn't be 1, 2, 3 people who are making the big money and everybody else below them is making 2 cents. Bullshit. That's exactly how the economy is to be working, where it's 1% of the population versus functionally everybody else. So, word of the day is know your worth. Be mindful about what you accept, and make sure you're always doing so consciously, knowing, accepting what feels right for your perceived value. So that's a part of healing. So it shouldn't just be in romantic or friendship situations where you have to leave when you don't feel valued, because a part of healing and healing yourself and waking up well is recognizing all the ways in which you are harmed, and actively working to heal from that harm. And to heal from that harm, you have to stop being harmed in that same way. I hope this was informative. It was long, but not as long as it could have been. So, stay safe, Shea Butter Bitch Collective.